Title: An elderly woman's small act of baking for neighborhood kids blossoms into a beautiful legacy. After a life lived in the rhythm of flour and sugar, Agnes Mallory found solace in her modest corner kitchen, a place that held the gentle echoes of laughter and love. At 73, she had long since set aside her career as a professional pastry chef, a job filled with creativity and delicious aromas. Now, the fading grandeur of her culinary past clung to the peeling wallpaper of her home, while the dust danced lazily on abandoned pans and scattered recipes. Times were tough, and the sloping roof of the house above her sagged with the weight of overdue bills. Agnes wore her thin, frayed apron like a badge, one she no longer adorned with the fine culinary accolades that would have once inspired envy. Instead, she carried the subtle scent of her humble baked goods, the sweet simmers of cinnamon, the rich essence of vanilla, and the gentle warmth of yeast rising in her kitchen. Might have been frail in stature, but her heart brimmed with an unyielding spirit and a deep-seated kindness that shone brighter than the sun on a summer day, even when clouds of worry loomed over her. Each day, Agnes navigated the tightrope of financial hardship with quiet determination. More times than she would admit, she stretched her meager retirement check to cover necessities. Groceries barely filled the fridge, and the heating blankets were her only allies against the chill. While the world seemed to pass her by, she devoted her remaining hours to gleaning joy from small moments, pouring her love into the meals she served at local shelters and the cookies she gifted to her friends living alone. To Agnes, this connection mattered more than silver linings or financial gain. Yet, amidst her domestic struggles, she couldn't shake the feeling of loneliness that creased the edges of her days. It was in the particular stillness of weekday mornings, when the neighborhood kids faddied their own worlds, and their laughter danced just out of reach, that Agnes felt the emptiness sink in. She missed the wisdom of their silly conversations and the innocent wonder of their games of making-believe. Then, on one particularly dreary Tuesday, something unexpected stirred inside her. As rain drizzled against her windows and the clouds hung heavy in the sky, Agnes's gaze fell upon her well-worn recipe book, the one splattered with evidence of sweet triumphs and monumental failures alike. A little fire ignited in her heart, and she heard the echo of whispers from her youth, urging her to mold the warmth of her kitchen into something special. With a resolute nod, Agnes rummaged through her pantry, salvaging what remained of her shrinking supplies: a bag of flour, a jar of sugar, butter clinging to its edges, and a sprinkle of cinnamon that begged to be used. Inspired by the thought of sweetened smiles, she set to work. The familiar motions of sifting, stirring, and rolling out like the return of an old friend, the joy of baking coursed through her once more. Each ingredient was infused with her hopes for connection and a yearning to bring light to her dreary days. She crafted a batch of cinnamon rolls, soft, gooey spirals of sweetness, lovingly adorned with a frosting made from an extra splash of milk and a handful of powdered sugar. As the scent wafted through her home, she couldn't help but smile, imagining the delight on the faces of the children who would never expect a surprise waiting just around the corner. Agnes knew they would flock to her door, bright-eyed and giggling, whenever the light turned to dusk. She packed the warmly spiced rolls into a tin adorned with her last remaining ribbons, stuck a piece of pink paper to the inside with "Hello there" written in her lopsided cursive, and gathered her courage. She carefully stepped outside, carrying her little hearth of joy nestled in her arms. The world felt sharper in the crisp evening air. In the small courtyard filled with bushes bursting with petals, Agnes approached an array of eager faces, the neighbor kids, lit with delight, just returning from the park. Their shrieks of laughter, illuminating her surroundings like stars in the night, reached her sensitive ears, turning her heart each beat. "Hello, my little friends," she called softly, her voice endearing, yet wrapped in the gentle timbre of age. "I have something for you." Time slowed as they turned to her, eyes twinkling like holiday lights. The promise of sugary goodness hovered in the air, and she felt a spark of warmth envelop her. As they gathered around in a flurry, their faces aglow with wonder and hunger, she presented her gift, her small act of kindness blossoming into something far greater. In that moment of shared laughter and eager hands reaching for the tin, Agnes knew her financial struggles were only a part of her journey, not the destination. The excitement and camaraderie around her would pave way to something unforeseen, a ripple effect of connection, happiness, and maybe even a blossoming legacy of kindness. Something so much richer than the monetary gains she had once chased. What began as a simple act in her humble kitchen would ultimately breathe life into a community that had dulled over time, rekindling the spirit of sharing and caring. And as Agnes' heart soared with joy, even as the raindrops played their lullaby against the pavement, she couldn't help but think this stranger's risk might just be the answer to healing her soul. The following day in the neighborhood carried a weight of warmth that wrapped itself in the cool morning air. The laughter of children echoed in Agnes's ears, lingering like the sweet scent of cinnamon that still hung in her kitchen. As she sat at her small, wooden table, savoring her morning coffee, she reflected on the joy her little act of kindness had sparked. The image of those bright-eyed children was bound to her memories, now woven o' the fabric of her soul. Word of Agnes's cinnamon rolls had traveled quickly through the neighborhood. As the sun dipped below the horizon the evening before, her doorbell rang not once but several times, welcoming more eager faces. Each child that arrived shared stories of their families, joys, and struggles, enthralled by the warmth of Agnes's home, which had blossomed into a sanctuary. It reminded her of a time when she had gathered others around a table, a time spent creating bonds with the patter of floury hands and the thrill of sweet success. And then, something unexpected began to unfold. As the days passed, the children returned, their energy spilling into the corners of the once quiet house. They helped Agnes knead dough, whisk frosting, and arrange baked goods on her favorite platters. Far more than just baking, these moments brought a rejuvenated sense of purpose back into Agnes's bones. She felt supported and loved, like they were all stitching her into the tapestry their lives. Among the children was a spunky girl named Mia. With pixie-cut hair and freckles dancing on her cheeks, Mia was a vibrant light. She often recounted stories of her older brother, Jason, who had recently lost his job. Their family was struggling to maintain ends, and Agnes felt an instinctual tug at her heartstrings as she realized the weight of their circumstances, a burden she herself understood all too well. "Sometimes I wish I could bake with you every day," Mia said one afternoon, a warm cinnamon roll in hand. "It helps us forget about everything else." "Then let us make it a weekly tradition," Agnes announced, her voice bubbling with excitement. "We'll share our treats and cheer with everyone in the neighborhood. I think kindness should be spread around, don't you?" The children nodded eagerly, and from that moment, Agnes's baking club was born. Word spread like wildfire. Neighbors began dropping by not only to grab a treat but to help, bringing with them an array of ingredients and support. Each Friday, the house buzzed with energy as laughter and stories filled the air, weaving in and out harmoniously. It was through this blossoming community that Agnes found herself forging deeper connections. One of the neighborhood mothers, Sarah, offered not just her expertise but resources. She was the owner of a popular local cafe that had been struggling after some unfortunate financial setbacks. Yet, together, they plotted to host weekend baking trials where the community could sample their latest creations, everything from blueberry muffins to maple glazed tarts. The first trial was a smashing success. Hundreds of locals flocked to the cafe, bewitched by the fragrant aroma drifting from the ovens and the sweet treats lovingly crafted by caregivers and children alike. Each sale became a tiny step towards healing Sarah's cafe, while the involvement held Agnes up, showcasing units of community support, strong and unwavering. As weeks turned into, that initial collaboration transformed into something even more heartening. The cafe thrived with creativity pouring out from every corner, and Agnes's joy overflowed into the lives of others. Families began gathering not just for food, but for the stories shared around tables laden with evidence of a sweeter life to be had. Forging relationships with customers and nurturing the connections made every Saturday inspired everyone to return and engage. And then, just as Agnes had envisioned her world blossoming with laughter and wonder, a twist of fate arrived at her door, wrapped in a shimmering invitation. One of the cafe's regular customers, a local entrepreneur named Andrew, approached Agnes with a heart full of gratitude and an unexpected proposition. Having enjoyed the cinnamon rolls and other baked delights over the weeks, he proposed to launch a brand collaboration featuring Agnes's recipes. Their creations would be sold in shops across the city. At first, she was hesitant, unsure if such an opportunity could ever be meant for someone like her. But Andrew reassured her that the heart behind the creation was what mattered most. It was her kindness that had kindled their community together. When the day came for Agnes to sign the partnership agreement, a tremor of liberation rippling through her left her teary-eyed. The contract was worth over $20,000, each shipment of her beloved baked goods set to spread joy and sweetness through an even larger audience. Questions swirled in her mind, but she felt exhilarated at the prospect of sharing her creations with even more people, all stemming from simple acts of kindness. Gone was the lonely woman who had baked in the shadows, for the time had come for Agnes to embrace this new chapter in her life, a chapter doused in purpose and connection, significantly eclipsing the worries of bills piled high. The financial burden that had daily weighed upon her chest began to dissolve with each transaction that flowed into a barn-like cafe, and she felt something long forgotten, stability and peace. But the ripple did not stop there. As Agnes flourished, she dedicated a portion of all profits to a local charity supporting families in need, like Mia's family. She wanted others to bask in the joys she had unearthed through acts of kindness. Each week, she baked a new batch, donating a portion to food banks for families to enjoy, a continuation of the legacy started in kindness that had turned into a force of change. Back at her kitchen table, Agnes sat with the very same recipe book that had ignited her journey a few months prior. She flipped through the pages, pondering the transformations woven through each line. Numerous margins were now filled with scribbles and notes from the children, exuberant in their opinions of glorious experiments and outrageous ideas. Mia bounced onto her porch one sunny afternoon, her face alive with excitement. "Agnes, our bakery club is getting bigger. We should have more events." The pride swelled in Agnes's heart. Every time we gather, we nourish not just our stomachs but our spirits too," she responded, the smile stretching wide across her face. "And you know? Helping one person, like your family, can turn into helping 100. Let's keep baking with love." The child looked up, eyes sparkling. "You're the best, Agnes. You should do this everywhere." Laughter erupted from Agnes's heart. It flowed like a melody and echoed across the kitchen. "Perhaps, my dear. Perhaps." And as the door swung open wide, revealing the bright glow of a sunlit day, Agnes knew she had found a beautiful legacy, not just sweet cinnamon rolls, but a warm embrace of community wrapped in love and financial security, spurring her own transformation. It was here she learned that small acts of kindness could blossom into extraordinary change, feeding the world one roll, one friendship, one brave step into the unknown at a time. As the sun rose over Maplewood, its warm rays lined the sprawling streets, spilling light into every cozy corner of Agnes's home. She stirred awake, her heart swelling with gratitude for the whirlwind of joy that had exploded in her life since her first cinnamon roll had graced the hands of the neighborhood children. What started as a solitary act of kindness had transformed not only her own circumstances but also the very fabric of the community around her. The weekly baking sessions had not only revived her home but also invited laughter and camaraderie back into the once quiet kitchen. Each Saturday morning was a celebration, a vibrant tapestry of children milling about, flour dust flying through the air like confetti, and the sound of happy chatter weaving in and out of her carefully orchestrated chaos. The neighborhood had come alive with the spirit of shared experience, and even Agnes felt herself healing with each smiling face that walked through her door. Days passed, and with the success of the weekend baking, Agnes learned something even more profound. Her act of kindness was more than just baking cookies, it was about fostering relationships, breathing life into those around her, and creating bonds where there once were only tales of hardship. As the children shared their stories, each laugh became a vital ingredient in her recipe for happiness. Among the many friendships that blossomed, one that stood out was with Mia, whose bubbly personality and persistent optimism often reminded Agnes of herself when she was much younger. Together, they devised new recipes that cheered Mia's brother Jason, who had recently found employment. The joy of the family was tangible, and it sparked something in Agnes, a dream she had thought forgotten began to flicker back to life. One crisp morning, while kneading a batch of dough, the scent of cinnamon wafting through her kitchen, Agnes turned to Mia, her whimsical assistant. "What do you think about creating a cookbook?" she asked, her heart racing at prospect. "A collection of our favorite recipes and the stories behind them, all the tales you kids share while we bake. We could call it Baking with Love." Mia's eyes lit up. "That's fantastic, Agnes. Everyone should know how special you are. We have to include the magic of those moments we spend together." With renewed excitement, they brainstormed ideas, laying out not just recipes but anecdotes and memories interwoven in flour and sugar. The cookbook would be their testament, a celebration of unity forged through shared values. As their project blossomed, Agnes found solace and purpose in her days, feeling more grounded during times when uncertainty loomed. As the weeks drifted by, word spread beyond their neighborhood and the local cafe, capturing the interest of a small publishing company. They saw the joy in the community and recognized the potential in Agnes's talent and heart. When the offer arrived, sweetly wrapped in an envelope, Agnes found it hard to believe they wanted to publish Baking with Love, and with it, they would pay for the print costs while donating a portion of the proceeds to support local families in need. Overwhelmed with emotion, Agnes hugged Mia tightly, tears of joy cascading down her cheeks. "You see," she whispered. "Look at how our kindness has bloomed into something beautiful." Excitement pulsed through Maplewood on the day of the cookbook launch. The sun beamed brightly overhead, and the community poured into the cafe, anticipating an event that would forever linger in their hearts. Families gathered around tables draped in bright cloth, vibrant flowers punctuating the scenery, while the smell of warm cinnamon rolls filled the room, coaxing nostalgia from souls young and old. As Agnes stood at the front of the room, her heart raced. She held the first printed copy of A Baking with Love in her hands, the pages crisp and echoing the laughter and warmth she had nurtured into existence. She gazed out at their faces, the children who had once gathered on her doorstep in search of sweetness, the parents now emboldened and encouraged to build a deeper sense of community. In front of her stood a family, no, a community, woven together in kindness. As she held the microphone in her trembling hands, the room hushed. "Thank you for being here today to celebrate with me," she began, her voice shaky but steadying with every word. "This cookbook is a representation of the love we've shared, a reminder that even in times of darkness, the simplest acts of kindness can light the way." The applause swelled, echoing against the cafe's walls and surrounding her like a loving embrace. Each clap resonated within her, a reminder of her journey peppered with small victories. She was not merely sharing recipes, but sowing seeds of goodwill and kindness that blossomed beyond her expectations. With a gentle smile, she turned toward the table heaped with copies, where Mia stood beside her, beaming with pride. "At least note that every purchase will help families in our community, just like those who've supported us," she added, feeling empowered as she spoke. "Every time we bake, we share love, sustaining hope and opportunity for all." As the lines formed to purchase cookbooks, Agnes felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. Hearing the stories of people connecting over the very recipes she had created gave her heart wings. She shared laughter with families, spoke with her neighbors, and basked in the warmth of gratitude pouring into her life. The newfound financial stability from the cookbook made her feel secure, bills that weighed so heavily were now manageable, and her accumulated savings began to rise, allowing her to improve her home and invest in the community kitchen she had always dreamed of launching. One evening, as Agnes prepared her home for yet another round of baking, now with the assistance of a steady flow of volunteers, she reflected on how far she had come. In her heart, understood that the transformation was rooted not just in the act of baking but in the connections, growth, and changing lives around her. With every roll of dough, she was forging ties that would prevail and yield more than mouth-watering treats. They were nurturing a place of warmth and belonging. One day, as she poured her newfound love into a batch of chocolate chip cookies, Mia entered with a sparkle in her eye. "Agnes, we should expand our cookbook. We can include some new recipes and stories from our families." Agnes chuckled softly. "Why, my dear, we are just getting started. Together, we'll write about the laughter, the lessons, and the love that make this community our home." With each passing week, the baking sessions thrived, now embracing a new level of vibrancy as new families joined in, sharing their traditions and culinary skills. Agnes reveled in the journey of crafting additional volumes, knowing that each page represented a chapter of their collective story, affiliance, courage, and the spirit of compassion ignited by the small yet mighty flames of kindness. As seasons rolled forward, the once quiet house became a vibrant hive of energy. The kitchen rang with laughter, support, and chatter, echoing delightful melodies that filled the hearts of those gathered. Agnes no longer felt the weight of solitude. She danced through the afternoons, her spirit lifted with every touch of flour. With expanded initiatives blossoming, Agnes embraced the long-awaited vision of a community kitchen, where all could come together once more, to share meals, stories, and love, forcing the roots of kindness deeper into the very heart of Maplewood. Ultimately, Agnes became more than just a baker. With the support of her community, she turned her modest kitchen into a sanctuary of hope for families, where vulnerability transformed into strength. She encouraged others to embrace kindness, reminding them that even in the toughest of times, there was always rise. Each time she gathered around the warm kitchen table, she smiled at the faces surrounding her, who she now considered family. And as light streamed in through the windows, blotting out the shadows of anxiety and loneliness, Agnes knew something powerful had ignited within her and her beloved community. Her story of kindness, resilience, and hope flourished, embodying the truth that every small act could spark something extraordinary and meaningful. They were taught to cherish one another and fill their cups with gratitude, baking not just for taste but for connection, determination, and love. And in the heart of Maplewood, under the rays of the rising sun, a kitchen still hummed with laughter, forever transformed by a simple act of kindness, echoing with sweet memories and promising even greater moments yet to come.